At 75, Lionel Richie reflects on Motown, sharing untold memories of struggle, success, and the bond that shaped his journey. Join us as we uncover this remarkable story that the world will not forget soon. Lionel Richie's deep reflection on Motown's influence. Lionel Richie has always carried a soft spot for Motown in his heart, and now, looking back at 75, he shares how deeply the label influenced every step of his journey. For him, Motown was not just a record company, it was the very soil where his career took root and grew into something larger than he ever dreamed. He remembers how stepping into the Motown world felt like entering a place where magic was created daily. Every corner of the studio was filled with energy. Every wall seemed to echo with songs that had already touched millions. And every moment carried a sense that history was being written right in front of him. That feeling shaped the way he saw himself as an artist and gave him a clearer picture of what he could become. When Lionel talks about Motown, he makes it clear that the label did more than give him opportunities. It built a foundation that helped him understand what discipline and dedication really meant. He often reflects on how hard it was to stand among so many gifted musicians, each one fighting to shine. Yet, instead of feeling small, he found strength in that challenge. The environment taught him to polish his craft, to never be satisfied with less than his best, and to respect the responsibility that came with carrying Motown's name. He admits that simply being part of that family was enough to push him beyond what he thought he could do. He also recalls how Motown shaped his music in ways he never expected. Songs like Endless Love show how the label's guidance could change the course of a melody and transform it into a timeless moment. Working with Diana Ross on that piece was not only a career highlight, it was proof that Motown's leadership had a unique instinct for creating classics. Lionel admits that those decisions, sometimes beyond his own, taught him that artistry is often about collaboration and trust. It was a place where his ideas met the wisdom of those who had been shaping hits for years, and the result was music that touched the world. Another reflection he shares is about the weight of responsibility he carried when creating solo work under Motown. He knew every note had to live up to the standard the label was known for. With so many songs in his hands, he had to carefully choose the ones that could truly represent who he was becoming, while still fitting the sound people expected from Motown. He worked closely with producers who guided him in striking a balance between heartfelt honesty and polished production. That process was not easy, but it helped him grow both as a writer and as a performer. Beyond the technical side of music, Lionel treasures the way Motown shaped his identity as a man. It showed him what it meant to be part of something larger than himself, something that carried cultural importance. The label gave black artists a platform at a time when the world was not always ready to accept them, and Lionel understood that privilege. He felt honored to be part of a movement that broke barriers and changed how people around the world saw music and those who created it. Today, when Lionel looks back, his words carry a tone of warmth and gratitude. He knows Motown was not perfect. There were challenges, competition, and moments of tension. Yet he sees all of that as part of the journey that made him stronger. The lessons he learned under Motown's roof continue to echo through his music and his life. For Lionel Richie, Motown was never just about records on the charts. It was about learning, growing, and becoming part of a story that still inspires generations. Speaking of being part of the story, Lionel has a lot to say about Commodores, so keep watching to know what he said. Lionel's moments with the Commodores. Lionel Richie's story with the Commodores began during his college years, when music was still something he explored for fun, never imagining it would one day carry him around the world. He was a young man at Tuskegee Institute, surrounded by friends who loved rhythm, energy, and creativity just as much as he did. What started as a group of students playing for the sheer joy of it slowly grew into a band with serious potential. They were a mixture of personalities and talents, but together they found a sound that blended funk, soul, and smooth melodies in a way that made people stop and listen. Lionel quickly discovered that his gift for writing songs and singing heartfelt lyrics gave the group something unique, something that set them apart from the rest. In those early days, the Commodores worked hard to build their reputation. They would play at school dances, small events, and anywhere that would welcome their music. Their energy on stage was magnetic, and they soon became known for being a band that could get a crowd moving no matter where they were. Lionel remembers how those times were filled with laughter, long rehearsals, and endless dreams of what could be. It was in that period that his confidence as a songwriter began to grow. He realized he had a natural way of turning emotions into words and words into melodies that touched people deeply. His songs brought balance to the group, mixing heartfelt ballads with the funky, upbeat energy of the other members. The breakthrough came when Motown noticed the group's potential and signed them. This was a turning point that changed everything. Suddenly, Lionel and his bandmates were no longer just college kids playing at local events. They were now part of a legendary label that carried the weight of stars like Stevie Wonder and Marvin Gaye. For Lionel, stepping into Motown's world with the Commodores was both thrilling and overwhelming. They had to prove themselves among artists who were already shaping music history, but the challenge pushed them forward, and they embraced it with determination. Their early recordings showed their wide range, from funky dance hits to soulful ballads. Lionel's voice began to stand out, especially when he wrote and performed songs that carried tenderness and emotion. Tracks like Easy and 3 Times a Lady gave the Commodores a softer side, contrasting with their energetic songs like Brick House. Lionel brought depth and feeling to the band's identity, showing that they were not just about rhythm and fun, but also about love, vulnerability, and storytelling. These songs quickly became favorites, not just because of the melodies, but because people felt the sincerity behind them. Life with the Commodores was not only about music, but also about learning discipline. They spent countless hours traveling, performing, and adjusting to the demands of being professional musicians. Lionel often looked back on those years as a time of growth, both personally and artistically. He learned how to connect with audiences of all sizes, how to carry himself on stage, and how to keep creating even when the pace of success was exhausting. The group faced struggles from competition with other acts to the pressure of staying relevant, but those experiences gave Lionel the strength and skills he would later carry into his solo career. Looking back, Lionel has always spoken warmly about those early days with the Commodores. They were more than just bandmates. They were a family who dreamed together, struggled together, and shared the thrill of seeing their music rise on the charts. For Lionel, the Commodores were the foundation of everything. They gave him a stage to grow, a place to discover his voice, and a brotherhood that shaped his identity. But all these became a possibility with the influence of one person. So stay tuned to find out more. The Golden Motown Era. When Lionel and the Commodores first stepped into Motown's world, one of the biggest figures they encountered was Berry Gordy. To Lionel, Berry was more than a record executive. He was like a mentor who knew exactly how to turn raw talent into global success. Berry had a vision that music wasn't just about sound, it was about creating stars. Under his guidance, artists weren't just recording songs, they were being groomed into icons. Lionel later admitted that many of the lessons he carried through his career came directly from watching how Berry operated. He learned the value of discipline, presentation, and professionalism. The recording sessions at Motown were nothing short of legendary. The Commodores would enter the studio and feel the weight of history in the walls. There were teams of songwriters, producers, and musicians, all working together like a well-oiled machine. Lionel described it as being in a musical laboratory where magic was constantly being brewed. Every day brought new challenges and surprises. If you thought you were good, the studio would test that belief. It wasn't about just laying down tracks, it was about pushing until the music sparkled with perfection. For Lionel, those sessions sharpened his craft and taught him how to take his ideas and shape them into timeless songs. But life under Motown wasn't always easy. The label had strict rules and a very particular way of doing things. Lionel and his bandmates sometimes felt boxed in. They wanted to experiment, to stretch out creatively, but Motown demanded results that fit a formula. Lionel later revealed that this tug-of-war between creativity and control became one of the hardest parts of working under the label. He wanted to tell stories, to write ballads that spoke from the heart, but at times the label pushed more for funky tracks that kept the dance floors alive. Balancing those two worlds was tricky, but it forced Lionel to find a middle ground, and that balance would later become one of the keys to his success. Despite the challenges, Motown became the stage where the Commodores delivered some of their most unforgettable hits. Songs like Brick House exploded with energy and gave the group a funky edge that defined the dance floors of the time. On the other hand, Lionel's ballads like Easy revealed the softer, more emotional side of the band. This combination of hard funk and tender love songs gave the Commodores a unique identity. They weren't just another band signed to Motown, they were carving their own lane. These songs didn't just top charts, they became cultural moments. For Lionel, every hit was proof that even within the label structure, he could still let his creativity shine. One of the most fascinating parts of Lionel's Motown years was the relationships he built with fellow artists. Imagine being surrounded by Stevie Wonder, Marvin Gaye, Diana Ross, and Smokey Robinson. It was like being in school with geniuses, where every hallway conversation could spark inspiration. Lionel often found himself learning by simply watching how these legends carried themselves. At the same time, there was an unspoken sense of competition. Everyone wanted to be the best, and that friendly rivalry pushed each artist to deliver more. For Lionel, this environment was both inspiring and motivating. He realized that to stand out in a sea of stars, he had to bring something unique, and that's where his heartfelt storytelling through music became his signature. Behind the glamour, Lionel faced struggles that fans never saw. The pressure to keep producing hits was enormous. Motown didn't slow down for anyone. If you weren't moving forward, you risked being left behind. For Lionel, this pressure sometimes weighed heavily on him. He was naturally introverted, and the constant demand for public appearances, endless tours, and strict recording schedules pushed him beyond his comfort zone. There were moments of doubt, times when he wondered if he could keep up, but he kept going, driven by his love for music and by the responsibility he felt to his bandmates and his growing audience. Yet even with the struggles, there was something about Motown that felt like home. The label had a way of creating a sense of family among its artists. Everyone knew they were part of something bigger than themselves. There was support and a shared pride in being part of a label that was rewriting the rules of the music industry. For Lionel, this sense of belonging made all the challenges worth it. Motown wasn't perfect, but it gave him the foundation he needed. By the end of the Commodore's golden years at Motown, Lionel was no longer just that shy kid from Alabama. He had grown into a confident songwriter, a powerful performer, and a voice that could carry both funk and love ballads with equal force. Lionel's turning point and solo career. As much as Lionel loved being with the Commodores, there came a time when he started to feel a quiet pull in another direction. The band had achieved incredible success under Motown, but Lionel's gift for writing emotional ballads began to stand apart from the group's funky image. Songs like 3 Times a Lady and Sail On had already proven that his softer side could capture the hearts of millions. Deep inside, Lionel knew he had stories to tell that went beyond the boundaries of the Commodores. It wasn't about leaving his bandmates behind, it was about answering the call of his own artistic voice. Leaving the Commodores wasn't an easy decision. These were his friends, his brothers, the people who had been with him from Tuskegee to Motown and beyond. Walking away from that bond was heartbreaking, but Lionel also knew that growth often meant change. At the time, fans were shocked, and many wondered if he could make it on his own. Yet Lionel carried with him everything Motown had taught him: the discipline, the stagecraft, the understanding of how to connect with people through music. Those lessons gave him the courage to step into the unknown. The early days of his solo career were filled with both excitement and uncertainty. Without the Commodores, Lionel had to prove himself all over again. He wasn't just the voice of a band anymore. He had to show the world that he could stand alone. His first solo records carried the warmth, sincerity, and storytelling style that fans had already come to love. Songs like Truly immediately captured attention, showing that Lionel's magic wasn't tied to the Commodores alone. His ballads struck a chord, and audiences responded with overwhelming love. Even though Lionel had moved on from the Commodores, Motown's fingerprints were all over his solo journey. The discipline of rehearsing until perfect, the pressure of delivering hit after hit, and the understanding of how to balance creativity with commercial success, all of it came directly from his time under Berry Gordy's system. Lionel often admitted that without Motown, he might not have had the foundation to succeed as a solo artist. It was like graduating from the toughest music school in the world, and now he was putting those lessons into action on a larger stage. What happened next was beyond anything Lionel could have imagined. His solo career didn't just succeed, it skyrocketed. His songs became international anthems. Tracks like Hello, All Night Long, and Say You, Say Me weren't just hits in America, they echoed around the globe. Lionel's voice carried across continents, uniting people in dance, romance, and joy. He was no longer just a Motown artist, he was a worldwide phenomenon. And yet, behind every success, Lionel could trace the path back to Motown, to the days when he first learned how to channel his heart into melodies that touched everyone. The shift from band member to solo artist taught Lionel one of the most important lessons of his career. Growth often means stepping into uncomfortable places. If he had stayed with the Commodores, he might have remained safe, but limited. By leaving, he discovered the full power of his gift. Reflecting on those days, Lionel admits how scary that leap was, but also how necessary it turned out to be. His decision proved that sometimes following your inner voice is the only way to reach your true potential. Another lesson that carried over from Motown into his solo career was the importance of storytelling. While Motown had pushed him to deliver polished, radio-ready hits, Lionel's true magic came from the way he could tell a story in a song. His lyrics painted pictures, his melodies carried emotions, and his performances felt like conversations with the audience. That connection, honed during his Motown years, became the defining feature of his solo success. Lionel didn't just sing songs, he made people feel like he was singing to them personally. Even as Lionel rose to heights that went far beyond the walls of Motown, he never forgot where it all started. The lessons, the discipline, the friendships, and even the struggles were all part of his foundation. Without Motown, there would be no Lionel Richie, as the world knows him today. He often described his time at the label as both tough and transformative, a period that tested him, but also prepared him for the decades of success that followed. But after stepping back from the constant demands of recording and touring, Lionel Richie kept a lighter schedule for many years. In 1996, he made a return with the album Louder Than Words. Rather than chasing trends or experimenting with the shifting musical styles of the time, he stayed true to his strengths. The project showed his preference for carefully crafted songs rooted in soul. Over time, that approach came to be recognized under the broader label of contemporary R&B, reaffirming his consistency and dedication to timeless music, and all thanks to Motown's strict guidance. The Motown legacy. At age of 75, Lionel sits with a sense of peace that only comes after a lifetime of highs, lows, and everything in between. When he looks back, what strikes him most isn't just the fame or the record sold, it's the journey itself. From Tuskegee to Motown, from Commodores to solo stardom, every step shaped him. Lionel finally admits that without the strict but nurturing hand of Motown, his story might have turned out very differently. He feels grateful for the opportunities, the lessons, and the challenges that forced him to grow. Gratitude shines through his words now more than ever, and it's clear that he carries no bitterness, only appreciation for the path he was given. Even after all these years, Lionel still speaks of Motown as if it were a family. The friendships, the rivalries, the laughter, and even the late-night frustrations in the studio are memories he treasures deeply. He acknowledges that being part of Motown meant being part of something bigger than himself. It wasn't just about creating music, it was about creating history. Lionel feels honored to have been among the artists who carried that torch. Right now, he sees those years as the foundation of everything, and he finally opens up about how proud he is to still be tied to the Motown legacy. One of the things Lionel reflects on most is the way Motown's influence spread far beyond Detroit and far beyond America. Through Motown, his music reached people he never imagined it would. Audiences in Europe, Asia, Africa, and beyond danced and fell in love to songs that were born in those Detroit studios. For Lionel, this global reach was life-changing. It proved to him that music truly has no boundaries. He feels humbled by the knowledge that Motown gave him a passport to the world, turning a small-town boy into an international voice. Many people wonder how Lionel Richie has stayed relevant for so many decades, and his answer always goes back to the lessons of Motown. Discipline, hard work, and respect for the craft are what kept him going. Lionel learned early on that talent alone isn't enough. You need dedication and the willingness to evolve. Even now, he continues to reinvent himself, performing with the same energy and love that he had as a young man. He knows that audiences can sense authenticity, and that's what has kept him connected to fans across generations. Right now, Lionel feels a responsibility to share his wisdom with younger artists. He often speaks about the importance of patience, discipline, and staying true to your voice. In today's fast-paced music world, where fame can be instant but fleeting, Lionel reminds new artists that real success is built over time. He encourages them to learn from the Motown model, work hard, respect the process, and never stop growing. To him, the greatest reward isn't just the fame or the awards, it's knowing that your music has touched people's hearts and stood the test of time. Even as he continues to perform, Lionel carries the spirit of Motown with him. Every concert, every note, every smile he gives to his audience is rooted in those early lessons. He says that when he steps on stage today, he still feels like that young man at Motown trying to prove himself, trying to give his best. That fire has never gone out, and he credits Motown for lighting it in the first place. For him, the journey has come full circle. As Lionel Richie finally opens up about Motown at 75, what comes through most is all about love for the music and the people who believed in him, and love for the journey that shaped him. His story is not just about fame or success, it's about resilience, growth, and gratitude. At this stage of his life, he isn't looking back with regret. Instead, he looks back with a smile, knowing that he gave his best and that Motown gave him the tools to become who he is today. For his fans, hearing Lionel speak so openly now feels like a gift. After decades of keeping some stories close to his chest, he finally shares them with warmth and honesty. And as his voice continues to echo across the world, one thing is certain: Motown may have been the beginning, but its spirit still lives in every song Lionel Richie sings. Because Lionel Richie was the first artist to be honored with an RIAA Diamond Album Award, he received 2 Golden Globe nominations, winning one of them. In 1982, he earned a nomination for Best Original Song for Endless Love. 4 years later, in 1986, he won the award in the same category for Say You, Say Me from the film White Nights, a song that also earned him an Academy Award for Best Original Song. So what do you think about Lionel Richie's revelation about Motown? Do you think Motown was the true secret behind his success, or was it Lionel's own courage to step out on his own? Let us know in the comment section. If you want more interesting revelations about your favorite celebrities, be sure to like, subscribe, and watch the next video shown on your screen. See you there.